Howdy, folks. Thank God it's Friday. We've actually broken into double digits in temperatures. Snow is falling off my car. The car will I actually took it to a car wash to get all the snow and the ice off. That's sort of cheating, but I did it anyway. Russ, you have some pre-show stuff?
I do. So I don't know if you remember, like Reggie Jackson used to walk up to the plate, and he was kind of gross because he would clear the nostrils out. He would do one, then
Snot
he would
rockets.
do another.
Yeah, snot rockets.
And the guy did that on the street today. And he was really close to me. And I almost vomited. Like, I get it. If you want to spit in the street, that's fine, right? We've all spit in the street. But this guy just did it right on the sidewalk. Both nostrils, just gunned it. It was gross, man. And it was cold, so it probably slowed down on its way down to the ground.
There are so many like disgusting habits that I used to see of baseball players back in the day. Sorry, Peter said something funny in the chat. There's so many disgusting, and I think it was Brian Downing who played for the California Angels that had one of the more disgusting ones. He would take his helmet off and he would spit into the helmet.
Yeah.
So I think that you figure when he put it back on, it would stick because I think he was starting to lose his hair. It would stick the helmet in place, and then guys like Mike Hargrove had there was amongst like 5,000 other things Mr. Rain Delay would do. He would adjust his wristbands and things of that nature.
Yeah, Richie Hebner used to keep pulling up his back shirt. There were a lot of guys like that, but the snot part is the worst, and the guy just did it in public with a lot of people on the street. And like I said, in this cold weather, it's like, it was like super slow-mo. I couldn't, it was just bad, man. Bad way to start the day.
And George Brett had that big wad of tobacco in his
yeah.
And he would spit that juice all over the place. Yeah, I would hate to be the guy after those games in the 70s and 80s to clean up the benches.
Well, we had a kid believe it or not, on my high school team that used to leave a pile at second base. It was gross. And it's like, dude, you're in high school in the 80s.
Okay, before we get into the
switch her up here. You can start talking about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, before we start and talk about a rather significant and interesting trade, we'll talk about the Super Bowl and make our predictions. Now, I have to say, don't bet based on my predictions because I don't know crap, but I'm just looking at this game, the Rams versus the Patriots, and I don't know what the spread is. I think the spread is probably, well, I can look it up, but I would assume that the Patriots are favored. Russ, do you know what the spread of the game is?
I don't know what the spread is. They are favored. My guess is they're probably favored by like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I would say 4 or 5. So I mean, we'll just predict on who's going to win, and I'll go on the limb here and say the Patriots are going to win. I just I'm not that the Rams aren't a good team; they're a very good team. I just think the Patriots will find a way to win. It'll probably be close, probably within a field goal, but I think the Patriots will win.
All right, this is interesting. The Patriots are given 2.5.
Okay, so it's under a field goal. Okay. Under
a field goal. That's, unfortunately, I have to tell people you can't bet against Tom Brady when it's under a field goal. It's just, the odds of the Rams winning by like a point or 2 is probably the only way they could win. But, I mean, 2.5 Brady will exceed that.
They've never won a blowout victory in a Super Bowl.
I know.
Every one of them has been by 8 points or less, and I think I don't know about the 2 giant ones the losses were by less than a touchdown, and I can't remember about the other ones, but
they're going to cover this. They are going to cover this.
Yep. Peter,
but I'm rooting for the Rams. I'm rooting for this is for the James Harrises. This is for the Vince Ferragamos. This is for the Lawrence McCutcheons. I used to like those guys, man.
Okay.
Who drops Vince Ferragamo?
Hey, Vince Ferragamo played for the Bills, unfortunately. Pat Hayden.
The CFL.
I didn't like Pat Hayden as much, but I like the other quarterbacks that I mentioned. McCutcheon was a stud.
He played for the Alouettes. He played for the Alouettes, Peter.
Yeah. It was a huge signing and a bust.
Yeah, and I think he went to
the bust that year for the Rams. He got into the Super Bowl, and I want to say they were leading at halftime.
They lost. I think it was 31-19 to the Steelers. That was.
They might have been leading at halftime. Might have been.
Yeah, the Steelers were a machine.
They were unbelievable.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so all of us think the Patriots are going to win.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. All right. So we'll talk about that on Monday and probably some of the commercials, which I've already started to see some of them sneaking out. You know, they always preview them a little bit. And I have to say this, Christopher Nolan, the director, should sue Taco Bell for this ridiculous commercial that rips off. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's the one that's the movie with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway about them going through like a black hole.
There's no good Matthew McConaughey movie, so I don't think he can do anyhow.
Stop it!
But it's not. He's a horrible actor.
A horrible actor that won a best actor.
I don't care. I'm not only not buying a Lincoln Continental from him, I don't care about his movies. He can bongo and naked if he wants.
Okay, but the whole point is that these Taco Bell commercials
you can't even name the movie. But go ahead.
Are a complete ripoff of this movie. I mean, they should sue for copyright infringement or
I feel
whatever.
bad for Anne Hathaway. I don't feel bad for Christopher Nolan, who made Batman so dark you couldn't even see him on the screen.
Yeah, but they were great. How dare you? Those are the best.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still good, but they were too dark, man. I did like them.
There's no such thing as being too dark.
Yes, there is.
Oh man. We're gonna have some epic arguments in Vancouver.
Those will be over the summer, Peter. We're gonna have like film Friday and music Monday. Yeah, okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, February 1st, 2019.
Hi,
I'm Peter Tessier in not so polar vortex Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello trying to not choke on an ice cube. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com.
Esmir said it's interstellar, and I could care less.
Interstellar. Thank you, Esmir. You're extremely knowledgeable. And
I'd rather see people grow like food in space.
And your favorite Ranger fan, Jessica Chastain, was in that movie as well. She was at a recent Ranger game wearing a Ranger jersey and Ranger glasses. So you have to like her.
I don't know if she's a real Ranger fan though.
No, maybe not. She was with Jimmy Fallon and his.
Go look at pictures of Margot Robbie as a Ranger fan. She's a crazy Ranger fan. That's better.
Okay, I have no complaints about Margot Robbie or Jessica Chastain. They can come over anytime. Okay, let's talk about this trade which broke about an hour ago, and very interesting deal, and I think very complex. The Florida Panthers traded Nick Bjugstad and Jared McCann to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Derek Brassard, Riley Sheehan, a second, and 2 fourth-round draft picks. Now, the interesting thing about this is Bjugstad has 2 more years on his contract at $4.1 million. McCann has another year at $1.2 million, and Brassard and Sheehan are both expiring contracts. Brassard making $3 million and Sheehan making, I think, 2.1.
Who got the second and fourths?
Florida did.
Florida
got all the draft picks. Now I'll just say this, and then I'll get your guys' thought on this. I think because the assumption was unless Brassard was going to a contender who was looking to add a rental, because there was talk about Brassard possibly going to Carolina in some sort of deal, that if he went to a team that was sort of on the outside looking in, that he would get flipped for draft picks before the deadline. I know some people are saying that might happen, that might not happen. It only makes sense if that does happen. I mean, he's a rental. He's got value. He's a center. They're stacked at center with Barkov and Trocheck and Borgstrom. So unless they are negotiating an extension, which I don't think makes sense, I think Brassard's going to get flipped before February 25th. And I think there's a possibility that Sheehan will as well, because he's a playoff experienced guy who can play center and
center.
Yeah. So,
but
what do you think of this deal?
Yeah, here's what I think of the deal. So clearly, Rutherford was cleaning house a little bit. So he gave the extra picks to take on some money, and that's fine for Florida. I mean, Florida now is sort of in this situation where we were all hopeful at the beginning of the year. Now we're less hopeful, right? And so they're covering those bets, and I think that's a smart move by them to do it. Bukestad, I think he's just slowed down. Like maybe in the playoffs you could put him in front of the net and get something out of him, but he's slowed down. I do like McCann still. McCann still has a really good shot and skates well enough to play in the NHL. But if you put him in the right situation, McCann could produce some points. Nothing big, but some points.
Yeah. You know what? I remember Tyler Dello saying this a long time ago. A lot of the best depth fourth line guys are former first round picks that didn't turn into what they thought they'd be.
Yeah,
They still are talented guys. And I really like that look at it because that's what McCann could be for Pittsburgh, given that they're going to try and go in and do another run. And I think it's a really smart pickup on that front. It'll be interesting to see what Bustad, has in the tank, so to speak, like as you mentioned, Russ, that if he slowed down. When I first saw this, I was like, I sort of went, okay, Rutherford just fleeced talent. I won't go that far anymore because the bigger picture for Rutherford is not what he gets for his players now in terms of return. It's maneuverability down the road. And as we were saying pre-show, there's 4 big ticket free agents out there right now. He probably wants to look at least 3 of them, which would be Stone, Panarin, and maybe Bobrovsky. And now he's got a little more maneuverability within his own internal budget and within the salary cap as well.
This is the Kristaps Porzingis deal in the NHL in a sense. But
no, neither.
I know. I'm just kidding.
You really want to get me going? Yes.
No, I know. You got to bring that Porzingis jersey back. But this is the thing. And from Pittsburgh, the deal that they made earlier in the week or last week when they traded Alexiak back to Dallas. Yeah. That now makes sense in the sense that they cleared $2.1 million over the next 2 years on salary to get a 4th round pick, which they included in this deal. But they needed that because Bukestad and McCann have term left. So they needed that flexibility, not for this year, but for next year and the year after. So that's why that deal was made. I also think they wanted somebody in their bottom 6 who provided some size. I mean, he may have slowed down, but I remember a few years ago, I thought Bukestad was going to be really good. He's just a big body who in front of the net. And if he's still got that in him in a limited role, that might be something that's beneficial to the Penguins. But I think you're right, Peter. This deal on the part of Dale Talon is all about accumulating assets and clearing cap space going forward. Panarin, Bobrovsky, Stone, Duchesne, Carlson. There are a number of free agents out there next year, and he can be in on any of them with state tax not being lack of state tax being a consideration in Florida and having boatloads of cap space. So, I mean, this could be a coup for the Panthers.
No, I think I like what they've done. Again, this sort of shows where Brassard's career is at, because even if he gets shopped again, he's getting shopped for like a third.
Yeah. You know what? And this really does start, and I saw it on TSN last night, and I know we want to talk a little bit about some stuff that we've heard there, but it seems to be it's a bit of a buyer's market right now. Yeah. It's, and you're right. Like, Brassard has long been linked to the Jets. I'm not sure he's what they need in terms of if they're going to add something for a playoff run. But you're right. I think you could get him for a third, maybe a conditional second or something, depending on where you get into the playoffs, how far you go. If you're Kevin Cheveldayoff or any other GM. And not that I think they should go after him, but I think you're right, Russ. The price isn't that steep.
No, it's not. But that's why I think Florida did a good job of accumulating picks here. Yeah. Because their drafting has gotten really good in the last 2-3 years. And they've built, we talked about it in the World Juniors, Hep and the Emmy. They've got guys that are coming, and Borgstrom's already playing. So this gives them more opportunity to get more players. So ultimately, it helps them. Honestly, I don't know if this is the deal that puts Pittsburgh over the top. I can't say that it does.
No, I mean, I continue to say that I think the deal that they needed to make and may still be making is for a defenseman. And if you look at that, now it could be a defenseman of the rental variety because, again, the money in and money out in this deal was almost a wash. I think it's 5.3 going to Pittsburgh and 5.1 going to Florida. So it's basically even. And, they have a little bit of cap space. And, now – I mean, they don't have as many draft picks as they did, but if they wanted to get a rental defenseman, I think that, and they think that that's where they need to go, then I don't think they can take on a Shattenkirk now, Russ. I think that this deal sort of eliminates that, but they can go out and maybe they'd be interested in Adam McQuaid or some rental defenseman, or Bouwmeester or a Kronwall or somebody of that nature.
I mean, I'll say this about Pittsburgh. I think they're starting to hit their stride. Murray's playing great. The beatdown of Tampa, I think, showed Cooper that you shouldn't go into Pittsburgh coming out slugging because they don't really care about that. Yeah. And before you knew it, they were down 4-0, and then you're trying to beat up Malkin, which is hard to do anyhow. It was just that was one of the worst game plans all year for any team, honestly.
Yeah, I heard some people saying they were cringing at watching Stamkos fight Malkin because they were worried about somebody breaking their hand, which is always a reality.
It's just ridiculous.
And I love Stamkos, and I give him full credit. Like, he's got the heart of a lion. But that whole thing, that whole game plan was so ill-conceived. But that's what teams now they get these things in their head, and they're like, you know what? We're going to do this now, so when we play Pittsburgh later, we're going to be in their heads. And you can't do it. I mean,
You know what's interesting?
Washington barely beat them. Washington narrowly beat them, and Phil Kessel was on his last skates, literally. Otherwise, I'm not sure Washington was going to win that series.
Russ, to that point, I think you look at, as you said, Bustad's a big kid. So, again, Pittsburgh's got their three. They're Crosby, Malkin, and Kessel. And because of the three talent, you can put Bustad in different places, and he brings a bit of a heavier game. So if you want to go heavy, they've got someone who's not – we're not talking about dropping the gloves. No, we're talking about someone who's got some size, can move the body around. And you've got enough skill, grade A level skill through the roster that if you want to go and play that game, they've got someone, but they'll still beat you elsewhere.
Well, I mean, I think that, they're looking ahead at a potential second-round match against Washington and increasing the size of their team. I don't think Bukestad's not a goon. He's not an enforcer, but he does use his size effectively. He can play center. He played center for Florida before. He plays the wing, so you could possibly put him on the second line with Malkin or put him on a third line. They've got Tanner Pearson. They got him, so they've added some size. They have the skill. I still think they need to add a blue line, or if they do that, then I think they're fully.
And that's as good as they can retool it.
That's as good, exactly. Now the thing is, it's like, okay, you've seen Toronto make their move for Muzzin. Now you've seen Pittsburgh make their move to bolster their forwards. If you look at the other 3 or 4 teams in the East that we can consider legitimate Stanley Cup contenders, meaning Tampa, Boston, Washington, maybe Columbus or the Islanders, depending on what day it is. I look at Tampa Bay and I think they're gonna make a move for a defenseman. But the speculation out there is I've heard Pierre LeBrun talk about Wayne Simmons and Tampa and maybe clearing cap space by moving out a Ryan Callahan or something of that nature. But I don't know. If you're Tampa, where do you think you need to address? They're so good, but if you want one thing that will put you over the top, is it another forward or is it a top 4, top 6 defenseman?
I guess I got to look at their lineup. I'm thinking a winger. I think it's a winger, but I'm going to take a quick peek here because I think
that's a good question.
Because they're playing Palat, Killorn, Johnson. I believe that's their third line. Stamkos and Kucherov. Braden Point. is playing with Kucherov. Stamkos, I think, is playing with Killorn. So I mean, your third line, your fourth line, there are pretty damn good. So
all right, I'll tell you what you could do. So, the only way I see this upgrade happening, and this is no slight, but this is just the way it is. If you got a third line winger and you put JT Miller down, and then you decide who's going to play tonight, Joseph or Ernie, based on just some extra firepower and size, because they both have some goal scoring ability. Joseph's got 12 this year. That's an upgrade because JT Miller's got 8 goals. Like again, when they acquired him, he's got a good shot, but he's never going to go back to the 20-something goals a year guy.
And they're paying him $5 million a year.
Yeah, and it's too much. It is. He's a nice, gritty player. Put him on the fourth line. You could get someone with a better trigger on the third line. That's what I would do.
5.25. Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering, one of the interesting things when you look at the Lightning is they've got 3 UFA defensemen next year.
Yeah.
Stralman, Coburn, and Girardi, 32, 33, and 34.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they'd trade one of those guys and a pick to get someone who might be around next year. Maybe like Chris Tanev. Add defense.
I don't think so, because like Cal Foot's gonna come up, right? So
that's you know what, you're right, Russ.
I think what they're gonna rely on, Peter. I think what they're gonna do is they'll bring up Foot. They may make a bid for Carlson if they don't get him to take a little less with state tax being a consideration. Yeah. I think they're going to be one of those
for Carlson.
Where's that money? Well, they're gonna if they're gonna do that, they're probably have to trade a Tyler Johnson, trade a Miller, clear out some space up front. But what I also think they're gonna do is they're gonna rely on the what Chicago has relied on in the past, what Pittsburgh has relied on in the past, a veteran guy taking less for a year or two to have a chance to win a cup. If Jay Bouwmeester doesn't want to retire, they offer Jay Bouwmeester $2 million for 1 year, or maybe one of these guys takes a 1-year deal if they want to bring Girardi back, which might be.
They will bring Girardi back.
Yeah, I mean, but they're gonna infuse some of their youngsters. I mean, Foot is he's having a very good year at Syracuse, so I think he'll be part of it. But I think that they're going to, in the summer, they have to tackle the Braden Point RFA situation, and they're probably gonna have to clear some salary. But I think that they're gonna leave their options open.
Well, they'll save some salary because Coburn will be gone, and I think they'll bring Girardi back, and then
Stralman maybe.
Yeah, he is. They might even bring Stralman back. They might. Yeah. I don't see them doing much else.
But right now, 32, 33 years old, nobody's signing those guys to long-term deals, so they have the advantage of maybe offering them a 1-year deal. And
they probably have to offer them 2 years each, but still maybe.
Now Washington, apparently the only move that they're looking to make is moving out Burakovsky and maybe bringing somebody back that bolsters them either in scoring or on defense. I would think it would be scoring. I think they'd probably want to add another winger if they're moving Burakovsky out. But I mean, so that's their move. Boston is definitely looking for either a third line center or a second line winger. We talked about the Panarin rumors, but if it isn't Panarin, if it isn't Simmons, if it isn't Furland, it'll be somebody like that. Columbus. Let's get to the game yesterday because they played Winnipeg. They played good, but Winnipeg came back in the third period and then got a late goal by Kyle Connor, right? Or was it Roslovic? Yeah, Roslovic got the time. Roslovic got the tie, or Connor got the winner. And I mean, I didn't see the post game. I was waiting to hear about an atomic explosion in the center of Manitoba with Tortorella. But
he didn't explode.
He didn't explode. But this is the thing.
He exploded on the bench.
Yes, he lost it. He lost it, and because I was watching this game, it was a really entertaining game. He lost it in the third period during a Columbus power play when Brandon Tanev blocked a shot that hit him in the back, and Tanev acted like he'd been shot by Oswald. He laid flat and like he was dead, and they whistled the play down in the middle of the play, and then Tanev went to the bench, and like a minute later he came back. So it was clearly, it was good play acting. It was you couldn't.
He went down the tunnel and stuff. Look, Brandon, here's what happened about 30 seconds before that, though. Was Tanev literally, because I was like, I was at the game last night and I watched it happen because that's where I sit, is in that end. Tanev's behind the net, behind Hellebuck, trying to play the puck up, and he literally has his stick ripped out of his hand. And no call. I mean, people went nuts.
Right.
And
there's a lot of stuff like that going around. When we talk about the Flyers game, there was a similar thing against the Flyers to Boston, not called. Like, they're just not calling stuff again. Second half of the year now, third
exactly.
Period,
so Brandon Tanev has also blocked a ton of shots. Like he is a shot blocking guy. He's totally prepared to sacrifice his body. So a discussion that happened amongst Jets people last night was Tanev's probably trying to he's not going to get that stick call because he's probably embellished some things in the past. But he's known as a guy who will throw his body down. And I thought it went off his helmet. Like, because I was sort of sitting, like, watching the shot come at me because I sit behind the net.
Right.
And I thought it went off his helmet. So
it hit him right between the 1 and the 3.
Yeah. He played some possum. I think, and that's part of the game.
Yes. But Torts, if I had $1 for every time Torts used the F word, I'd be heading out for an extra large pizza tonight.
Oh yeah.
But
you wouldn't be griping out $50 for wings and pizza or $80 for
$80. Yeah, no.
You'll still gripe about it.
But
you'd fit well in Winnipeg.
But this is the thing. Focusing on Columbus for a sec. They brought in Marty St. Louis to help out with the power play, and the power play last night, especially that one. All it was Werenski passing to Panarin, Panarin passing to Werenski, Werenski passing to Panarin, shot. There was no inventiveness whatsoever. He's got a lot to work on there because it was not very effective. And they have weapons. They have good talent on that power play. But I just heard this on Hockey Central this at noon. The Aaron Bobrovsky just really.
You're breaking up there, Mike.
Okay.
But
how about now?
That's better.
Okay. The Bobrovsky and Panarin talk has caused enough of a distraction that it's sort of feeding into the locker room, and that's a problem. If that's going to be a distraction now, I mean, I think Jarmo's got to make it not a distraction.
Yeah, I mean, Panarin was very good last. Like, I liked what I saw. I'll give, it was funny. I thought the Jackets found some seams in the Jets power play a little bit. They PK and in the defensive coverage. I think they did some very good work on the video and found some things that they exploited. They just couldn't score when they wanted to. But Panarin is a shifty little guy, and that's going to be really tough because all the Jackets need now is a rough next 2 weeks in February. And yeah, you've got to sell. Like, because what happens when you go up? Well, what happens when you get into the first round and you're a wild card and say you're the 8th place? You're playing Tampa. You're not going to survive. Like, what is 2 home games versus Tampa worth? Or maybe 3?
Well, it could be worth $3 million.
Right. But it's more than that. It's more than
immediate financial gain.
Yes.
Well, not always. I mean, again, you got to pay players. You got to pay to keep the building open. Peter, it's easy and cavalier to say that, but we know otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand. I understand that, but
you got to ice a winner, and you might be almost a winner now, but by making the right moves, you could be a better winner next year or the year after. And all
right. I mean,
it's short-term versus long-term risk.
No, but here's the thing. You can't say that Columbus hasn't tried to ice a winner here.
No, I'm not saying they haven't. I'm saying if their best option is to limp into the 8th place and get walloped by Tampa, is that a good option?
Well, again, you don't go in there thinking Tampa's going to do that to you. You have to go in there thinking.
Of course not. But if you're Jarmo, you have to think about that.
But anything can happen. Then you have to go with that.
I mentioned this yesterday. That's not even the
Hope
disaster.
is never a plan.
That's not even a disaster situation. The disaster situation is you decide not to move Panarin and Bobrovsky at the 25th of February. You let it pass, and then you have a slump in March, and you miss the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be the worst thing. There's no question.
And like right now, Buffalo is 3 points behind them. Columbus loses. Buffalo is 3 points behind them. I think they're equal in games right now. They both have played 50. So, and I think Buffalo is going to probably add at the deadline because they have the cap space.
Yeah, but nothing's urgent right this minute. They're going to ride out this month until the deadline and see where they stand. Literally that day, that morning, they're going to look up in the standings, see where they are, and then huddle together and figure out what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to do anything before then.
Well, Yarmo's going to have to do his due diligence. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I don't think Yarmo and his group are sitting here going, all of a sudden, now what do we do? They knew about this in September.
Of course.
They have been planning these things. They have ideas. They have had calls from people. They have had all sorts of things.
Right.
And that's totally fine. It's not a wake up, what do we do? Now it's into plan B, plan C, plan D. And how do you execute it?
And that's what Pierre LeBrun said yesterday. He says, ever since the thing from Daniel Milstein came down, Yarmo's phone is ringing off the hook. And he said he'd be surprised. I think it was him or Darren Drager that said they'd be surprised if Boston wasn't one of those teams. But I think that the key for Columbus, if they want to play it sort of halfway, is to get somebody, either a rental or to get somebody who they can keep for next year as part of the deal for Panarin. And that's going to be difficult. Most of these teams are who are trading for him. Yeah, they'll trade prospects and draft picks, but I don't know if they'll trade somebody that'll be an impact player going back the other way. Let's move to the Russ. Did you have anything on the Flyers game yesterday?
Obviously Carter Hart played well. I've got now this one guy who used to cover games trolling me because Carter Hart won goalie of, rookie of the month. And that's great. I mean, I do a rookie hot list for GTS's website and I put him 8th. He's played 32 games. My only worry is he plays too many games.
Between AHL and NHL?
AHL and NHL. Because again, game is a game to your body.
Sure.
And the NHL ones are tougher. We'll all agree on that.
Yeah.
So he's played 32 games in total. And I'm just kind of wondering, everybody goes, well, with playoffs and everything last year, he played in the World Juniors, I don't know, make a number, 60.
Right.
Okay. But he's 20. Do I want this guy to play that many games? Me personally, I don't. It never had anything to do with talent. I mean, I've been talking about Carter Hart way before the draft on this show. You watched me interview him at the Combine. Obviously, I thought he's going to be a top goalie all along. It's not about the talent. It's about his physical well-being. And it's not like the Flyers are doing anything wrong with him. No. It's just everybody has a different line of demarcation when all of a sudden they hit the wall. I don't know when he's going to do it.
I mean, let's say this, and we've heard this from people who cover the team. We've heard this from people, we know this, Russ and I, because we talked to Carter Hart at the draft combine a couple years ago. He's a very intelligent kid. He's very well grounded. Mentally, he may be prepared for the NHL. The thing that I'm concerned about has been it's too much too soon. And it may not manifest itself now. It may manifest itself 2 years from now when he's 22 and he's going through a long slump, and maybe he would have learned how to deal with that, playing more games and playing games in the American Hockey League rather than in the NHL, where things can change on a dime. And that's the thing. I think he's an extremely talented goaltender. I think if they manage it well, he's their goalie of the future. But in my opinion, him being up there now is not being managed well. Right now, the whole purpose of this is to keep butts and seats in Philadelphia. And that's honestly, you should be concentrating on losing and getting Jack Hughes and not winning. I'm saying just my. I
know. I'm saying we can't say that yet until we know Elliott's healthy. Once Elliott's healthy, then that conversation can start. It can't start really until then. Yeah. Because then there's a reason to push it. But again, I still want to see Anthony Stolarz get more games, simply for the fact that the Flyers need to know what he is going to be going into the summer, because that's going to make a big difference, or even at the deadline, whether they trade for someone else, a veteran who could back up and start. So that's one of those things where it'll come down the line. As far as the game, they played great. They handed it to Boston. Boston made a dumb play. Marchand made a dumb play in overtime, and Sanheim made a great play to win it in overtime. And that's when you give Sanheim a little extra room on the ice like that, you could see where he's dangerous, and he's able to sort of walk the line and handle the puck and make a great shot. Both goalies played great. No issue there. The issue is the Flyers could win 10 now, and then they could drop their next 5. And that's what this core has done. That's why, and just breaking up Simmons isn't enough for breaking up the core. You got to trade Voracek too at some point, because otherwise the prevailing thought in that locker room is always, we can come back. We feel like we can do this. And it's always that way, and then always turns a different way later in the season. Like everybody's lived through that.
You've won 6 games in a row, Philadelphia, and right now you're at 50 points.
Yeah.
22, 23, and 6. You're 9 points out of a wild card and 10 points out of third place in the Metro.
And Columbus still has a game in hand, and a couple teams do.
Yeah.
Columbus has a game in hand. Buffalo has a game in hand. Give me a friggin' break. Great. You've won 6 in a row. Your season is not a complete and utter disaster, but all you're doing is ruining your chances of getting a franchise player in this draft. But anyway, let's move on to some comments that we heard. Peter, we'll start with the ones that were connected to the Nets.
Before the comments, I just want to mention one thing about the Ranger game.
Oh, yeah.
The Zibanejad trade. If you want to talk about a trade that's an all-time home run, which also included Derek Brassard, it was Zibanejad in a 7th for Derek Brassard and a 7th. Like, I can't tell you what a good trade that was. That day, if you remember, we talked about it, and I told you why I thought it was a good trade, because he's a big centerman with a great shot. He gets a hat trick yesterday. I think he had 4 points.
Yeah.
And he is at the point now where, you know what? He is a number 1 center. He has worked himself into a number 1 center, and Ottawa just didn't want to pay him. And they had Brassard, whose contract was front-loaded with the Rangers. Right.
And his money went down in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's why Eugene Melnick and I think Pierre Dorian, unless it was Brian Murray who was still GM at that point. This was
a great trade for the Rangers, and Zibanejad has really turned into that player. I mean, I always had faith in him. He scored the golden goal for Sweden at one time. I always had faith in him, and it's just nice to see. Now you can talk about Derringer.
Okay. Peter, there was some talk regarding the deadline and the summer, and we'll start with the Winnipeg connected stuff. Now, Darren Dreger, as part of the TSN Insiders, was talking about Matt Duchene and Mark Stone. Now, I've heard from a number of different insiders, based on their comments, that the majority seem to think that Stone is the one that's going to get signed. That they think that they're closer on Stone, but there's no guarantees right now, and that Duchene is probably the one to get traded.
I think flip a coin, man.
Yeah, it could very well be. And you know what, Russ? In the end, it could be both of them. I mean, I heard Pierre LeBrun and Dreger talking yesterday and saying that it could be Dzingel, it could be Stone, it could be Duchene, and they say it's almost guaranteed that Cody Ceci is getting traded.
Yeah, and Cody Ceci's name's popped up. I mean, it's such a crazy thing. So I saw, and I'm prepared to be correct if I'm wrong, but it appeared to me when I listened to it that Darren Dreger said the Jets are interested in Stone and Duchene, not and or. Now, that just might be a slip of the tongue in front of the mic. Now, they may have a preference of one or the other. They may be open to talking to Ottawa about either.
Right.
But that is a massive, massive amount
to
give up.
If they're going to get Stone and Duchene, you're going to lose Roslovic and maybe Kyle Connor in that trade.
You're losing someone, and plus draft picks.
More. Yeah.
Plus maybe Logan Stanley. Maybe maybe and more. Maybe Vesalainen. Like,
could be Vesalainen.
Right. Like you are I mean, that would for a team under this management that has had 2 playoff appearances, made it to the Western Final, to go all in like that, I just don't see it happening.
Not
with this group.
The shakeup is too extreme, and that doesn't. I don't even think Maurice would like that.
No, I would doubt that it's both of them. I think he's probably saying, and because if it's not one, it's the other. But I can't see.
And you're going to throw Stone in because of the Winnipeg connection,
right?
But I mean, Duchesne makes more sense because he's a center. He can play center. It would be basically what they did last year with Stastny. And you're probably giving up. And the only way it makes sense for Winnipeg.
Big difference. Stastny is way better at faceoffs.
Right.
He's way more physical at the position than Duchesne is. Duchesne, you're literally just adding offense and quickness.
Okay.
Which is something the Jets need. They need a guy who pushes the play.
Yes. He'll do that.
But my point is that similar to what happened with Toronto and Muzzin, the Leafs gave up a first-round pick and guys who are not on the NHL roster. And I think in a perfect world, Winnipeg wants to take one shot where they keep what they have and they add one player like they did with Stastny last year and say, okay, let's go for it, and then worry about everything else in the summer. And because, whoever they trade for is more than likely they're not going to sign Duchesne or not going to sign Stone. It's going to be a pure rental. And, they're giving up their first round pick and maybe they're giving, and they may be giving up a Logan Stanley or some other valued prospect to make that deal. But I doubt that they're going to, I can't see, Peter, them trading Roslovic or Connor or any of these young guys who they've already proven
someone they can't sign.
Right.
Like it makes no sense because they still have another year of Roslovic at his entry level deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a massive risk, and that would and then you have the time bombs of Connor and Laine.
Talking about Trouba in this, where we're pretty sure he's not re-signing.
Exactly. So sure, you may save yourself $6 million there.
Sure.
But you also have a hole. And you don't re-sign Stone to replace Trouba.
No.
Now the thing that I had a problem with, and I understand why this stuff is put out because they have to talk about something, and anything related to Toronto is going to get a lot of hype. And over the last couple of weeks, we know that the talk of is Austin Matthews is going to get signed. It's going to probably happen in the next couple of weeks, or maybe before the end of the season. But it sounds like the Leafs are going to lock him up on a long-term deal, maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years, but something in that range, and probably 11 to 12 million bucks. And Drager came out yesterday and said he has talked to NHL general managers who say they will put out an offer sheet to Mitch Marner. Okay, it's winter and it's Buffalo, so of course it's snowing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Jesus Christ. Give me a friggin' break. Of course, general managers are going to offer an offer sheet to Mitch Marner. The whole question is, will Mitch Marner go that direction and try to sign an offer sheet with another NHL team? And I'll tell you right now, the Leafs are not going to undercut him. They're not going to underbid him. They're going to offer him something competitive. They're not going to insult him.
What?
Forget it. Hold on, Peter. What is the price to the team that signs the offer sheet draft pick wise? Where are we at? Because he's an A prospect.
Four first.
Four. If it's over $10 million,
which it will be.
Right, which it will be, and it'll probably be a 6 or 7 year offer sheet. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. If the cumulative amount of the money is $50 million or more on the deal, then it's 4 first-round picks.
Okay. Let's consider this for a minute. If the Leafs lost him, let's say somebody does do the offer sheet and they lost him, it's a loss, but it's not like they can't recover from that. You give the Leafs 4 first-round picks, that might win them the cup quicker than when they do it with Marner. Like, you just don't know. You never know.
They could flip a couple of those first-round picks to somebody to get a player.
It's currency.
It depends. So, first of all, you need a team who's got the budget and the cap space to sign him.
Right.
Then you need to be a team that says to Mitch Marner, we're a better option for you at this salary than you are with the Leafs.
Right.
Which team's that?
Yeah, there is no team.
And there's no team.
There is no team.
And no team. No player is worth 4 first-round picks.
The only team I could see that would even be close and have the chutzpah to try this is the Canucks.
Yeah.
Is the Canucks.
Yeah.
And you know what? Mitch Marner, being an Ontario boy, like being right from there, he's not taking an offer sheet from the Canucks.
Right. The only way that Mitch Marner and Darren Ferris, his agent, will be fishing for offer sheets is if the Leafs offer him something insulting. If the Leafs say, okay, say Matthews signs a 6-year deal for $11.5 million. Yeah. And the Leafs go to Marner and say, well, we want to sign you for 6 years and we'll offer you 8.5. He's not going to take $3 million less than Matthews. If they offer him 9.5 to 10 million, I think, but that's what the highest or second highest winger in the league. Mm-hmm. He will not bolt, and he will not ostracize himself by signing a 7-year offer sheet with Vancouver or Arizona or somebody like that. Not a chance in hell.
He wouldn't sign with Arizona. They're going nowhere.
Right.
He wouldn't do it with Dallas.
But think about it. In this day and age, why would you give up 4 first-rounders for anyone?
Right. And then the other thing is,
well,
go ahead.
There's probably some GMs out there who would do that because they don't think in our 4 first-round picks that we will find a Mitch Marner. And somehow that's the logic.
Scouting department.
Right? Well, yeah. Yes, I agree. You should, all that money you're going to spend on signing Marner and giving up your 4 first-rounders, put it into your scouting department.
Now Dubas, and he has said this before, and I don't think he was responding to this specifically, but he said in the past, I don't care what somebody offers them, we're going to match. Okay, so they match. Say it's a 7-year deal, making as much or more than McDavid. If he says we're going to match, okay, then you're probably going to force the Leafs to trade William Nylander and probably somebody else to clear the cap space. You're not getting Mitch Marner. And that's the whole thing with offer sheets.
You're not getting Mitch Marner.
That's the whole thing with offer sheets. It's like it only makes sense if the team actually thinks that they're going to get the player. It makes sense for Nashville if they have cap space to offer sheet somebody on the Winnipeg Jets if they think they're A, have a chance to get him, and B, put the Jets in cap jail if they match.
Yeah.
Now, somebody in the Atlantic Division, like Florida or Detroit or somebody of that nature, might take that, mindset and say, okay, but again, Marner has to agree to it.
Yeah. Right. And then he's got to say, if you're going to agree to it, so you send an offer sheet. You can't sit and talk to the GM beforehand. That's tampering. You get literally sent the offer sheet, if I'm correct.
You have to wait until after July 1st when they're an RFA so they can talk to anybody.
Right. So you have to wait till then. So at that point, say it's Detroit. Let's just use Detroit.
Okay.
You're Mitch Marner and his agent. What do you ask Ken Holland? What's your plan to get me back in the position I'm in right now with the Toronto Maple Leafs where I could win?
Right.
What's your plan? Because that's the first question. And again, what team makes Marner right back to where he is in 1 or 2 years where he's feeling he's on a contender and they have cap space to do this? There's 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
That doesn't mean the GM wants to give up 4 first-rounders.
It doesn't mean the GM. Right. And then you have to have a GM who doesn't even believe in the value of 4 first or believes the value of 4 first.
Remember, once the Flyers gave up 3 first-rounders for Adam Oates.
Was it 3?
Oh, right.
It was 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Oh, and they were going to give up 4 for Weber.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see that, and like we said before, and then we'll take some questions in the chat to end the show. Like we were saying before, I mean, 4 first-round picks. If it's Vancouver, I have a chance of 4 lottery picks, Peter, even with Marner. I mean, I think they're great. Yeah. They got some great young players in Besser and Pettersson, and Quinn Hughes, and if they add Marner, then they could be a dynamic offensive club. But there's no guarantee.
But they still have holes.
They still have a lot of holes, and they're giving up basically four hole pluggers, and potentially more if they made that kind of offer, or Arizona or somebody else. It only makes sense. Offer sheets only make sense if you're a team that is competitive, that is a playoff team, that has cap space, and that you believe that those 4 picks will be in the 20s every single year. Yeah. Then it makes sense. If you think you have top 10 picks or lottery picks and have a chance to win the lottery, you're, as a general manager, you're friggin' insane if you sign an offer sheet. Yeah. So, all right, let's take some questions.
We killed that one.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I'm not. I don't.
I'm with you, Mike.
I wish it was for Oates. It was a first, a second, and a third because that was at the deadline. That's right.
I don't doubt that Darren Dreger was told by other general managers that they would offer sheet Mitch Marner, but that's, I'm sorry, it's not as simple as that. It's got to be a 2-pronged process where they're interested and he's interested, and the Leafs are treating him like crap. And I don't think the Leafs will treat him like crap. I think they recognize he is a great player and they will pay him. That's why I think William Nylander will probably be traded next summer, because if you pay Marner what he's worth and you sign Janssen and you sign Kapanen and you maybe add a defenseman, then you might not have the room to keep a $7 million William Nylander. So, but we'll talk about that in July. All right, Russ, do we have any questions?
I don't know. Let's see.
Let's end the show now. Okay.
Let me look. I'm multitasking because we're doing a live show tomorrow at Bullies, and it's at 4:30 to 6.
Oh, is this the Flyers talk?
This is the Flyers. Yeah, this is the Flyers talk on Wildflower Sports. We do Stick to Hockey. Myself and Jason Matias, Anthony Mangione's on, Bill's on that, a whole host of people. Gritty's going to be there. Scott Gordon is going to be there. Chuck Fletcher is going to be there.
Can you guys hold back and just let Gritty go in the place, and then I can throw a hand grenade in there and just waste them?
No, we don't want any threats on the show.
Just kidding.
This is a celebration of hockey. This isn't like a day of hockey. All right. So let's see. I am looking now. Esmir's question is regarding the Pens. How long do you think it will be before the Pens have to retool or rebuild? Next year. It's every year they retool and rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a win now stance. They've got Crosby, Malkin.
Maybe next year or over the summer it's Kessel this time.
Right. They got Crosby, Malkin, Kessel, Letang, who are all between, I think, 29 and 32. The clock is ticking. So they're trying to win now. They're probably trying to win next year, and then, then I think you're talking about them sort of falling back, and maybe within a year or two they trade a Malkin and try to get something for him, and they're going to probably fall back. I mean, I don't know how long those two guys can be good. I'm sure that they're great and they're Hall of Famers, no doubt, but I don't know how long they can stay at a high echelon. Stay at a high level.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think this year, next year, and then I think the window closes.
Yeah. What could Tampa move for Simmons? Simmons to Tampa for Ernie and picks? No, I think if they were to get him, it would be Ernie and Foote and a conditional first, something like that. I know, but I think it would be steep because they're not going to just give him to Tampa.
I think they'll avoid.
And the condition would be that they sign him. If it's not, then it wouldn't be a first. It'd probably be like a third.
I think they would avoid trying to give up a defensive prospect because they don't have as many of them as they do.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the Flyers won't ask for it or.
No, I'm sure they'll ask for him. But don't you think that Breezeball will say, okay, how about Radish or how about Stevens or how about Sorelli instead of?
They might, but again, if I'm the Flyers, I'm sticking. This is my big asset. Well, you want to make the deal. This is the cost. Maybe to a Western team, I go a little easier.
That's where the bidding war. I mean, if you got Boston and Tampa and a couple other teams bidding up Simmons, it could get to the point where the Flyers really hit the home run. And that's what I would be trying to do. Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
The heck was that?
That was a big truck going by.
It sounded like a Spitfire strafing your house.
All right, we're going to eliminate Jason from the chat room forever because he said Johnny Depp as George Jung is greater than Downey as Iron Man. Like, listen.
What
Downey Jr. as Iron Man is better than Michael Keaton. He's better than Buster Keaton. He's better than anybody. He's better than any superhero actor out there.
I will grant you that Johnny Depp was great in that movie. I think he's talking about Blow about the movie about the Medi. Yeah,
oh yeah.
Come on. I mean,
Robert Downey as Iron Man is perfect.
Yeah.
Anybody else who says so gets eliminated from the chat room.
And Christian Bale as Batman
was really good. He just wasn't good as Keaton, but he was the next best.
Well, I love Keaton. Michael Keaton's one of my favorite actors. Do I think Christian Bale was a better Batman than Keaton?
Yes.
They were. Yes.
Christian Bale do Johnny Dangerous.
So here's the problem.
No, of course not.
Here's the problem with those movies. The Batmans, the original ones, are made to look like comic books.
Yes.
The Dark Knight ones are made to look like life in a different in a fantasy setting. They're different.
Agreed.
And it's the same thing as why the first Fantastic Fours kind of failed. They were made to look like comics. The next round of Marvel comics and ones, in the Marvel universe, they got wise and said, we can't make them look like comic books. We have to bring the comic books into our world now. And they made them better. DC still hasn't figured out what to do.
But it just, like I said, it was just a little too dark.
And most movies that try to look like comic books are bad. Like Dick Tracy was bad.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that was awful.
Had great actors, and it was just a terrible movie. But continue.
All right. Let's see. Drew wants you to stop hating on Carter Hart, Mike. Just so
I'm not hating on him. I think he's a great prospect.
He's going to be awesome.
I just think that this is not the best thing for him in terms of his development.
Julian asks, would Philly do Hart and Stellaris in a tandem next year? Well, that's the point. Is I think if you play Stellaris X amount of games before this trading deadline, you might get a glimpse into whether that would work or not. If you think about it, if that did work, that would save them an awful lot of money, and then they could be a big player in the offseason.
Now, I can't remember who it was.
Going to play enough games to matter.
I can't remember who it was in one of our chats that was saying that they'll send Hart down once they get eliminated from the playoffs. Right. I don't know if they will, because they'll say, "Oh, well, he'll get more experience playing in games that are like non-pressure games now that we've been eliminated." No,
yeah, I can't tell you. I can't. All right, Rob Hunsberger wants to know: are the Leafs done with adding to their defense, or will they try and add another 5 or 6 to solidify things in case of an injury?
I think they will. I mean, let's just say this: the conventional wisdom right now that's come out from a couple different people is that the Leafs are looking to move money out, like money in, money out. Like they'd like to move somebody like a Zaitsev out to bring somebody else in. I don't think that's possible right now, because I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to take a $4.5 million contract for 5 more years for a guy who has sort of underachieved the last couple of years. I think that what they could do is they could move a Marinson or an Ozaganov making a little less than $1 million out to bring in a veteran guy. I keep going back to Roman Polak. I think there's a chance, since they only have one righty that's in the lineup, and Dallas is an extra defenseman now that they added Alexiak, that they might go out and say, what do you want for Roman Polak, and and trade a Marinson and a 5th round pick or something like that.
Yeah,
so
I think they smart.
I think they will add a veteran guy before the deadline.
Okay. Jason wants to know, was it a mistake for Ottawa to use the pick last year on Tkachuk instead of keeping this year's? Hell no.
No.
You've got a year's worth of development. This is what I was saying last year. You get the player, you've got a year's worth of development under your belt, and now he's a first-line NHL player. Like, how much better can you do?
And they are praying to God that they lose the lottery, and pick 3rd or 4th instead of picking 1. But I heard somebody say that they liked Tkachuk as a prospect more than they liked the possibility of getting Hughes, which I think is, they're different players. So I can't. I mean, I'm telling you right now, Hughes is going to be a star based on he was playing hurt. He was playing hurt in the World Junior, and when he was on the power play, Nobody could take the puck off of his stick.
No.
Hey, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, because I just saw an interesting tweet and I hadn't thought about this, and it's really neat. Okay, here's the question. How much do you think Kyle Connor gets this offseason? If it's $6 million plus, then you can include him in a trade for Stone and pay an extra $2 million a season to keep him if you do it. Think about that for a bit. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I'm not doing the trade. I'm keeping Connor because
I'm just
Stone's going to cost
giving
me
up some
too much.
age, right?
Yeah, you're giving up age, and Stone's going to cost me too much. Connor is just coming into his own.
I think Stone will cost you more than Wheeler.
Yeah, he will.
I think Stone is going to sign for like $9 million a year.
Yeah.
I mean, so
comes back to Winnipeg. His dad will be ticked because his daddy, as I've said before, his dad used to be a client of mine. His dad wants to get out of Winnipeg so bad. So they were a little unhappy when his other son got moved from Arizona because they like going down there to visit him.
Well, as Warner said, second is Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage. Will you stop? Ghost Rider is a horrible movie.
Oh my God. I don't think I've ever seen that because
I watched like a half hour of it. It was
I thought he was going to say Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage. It's like possibly the worst acted movie in the history of the world.
What were the movies with Nicolas Cage? The 3 or 4 that he did.
National Treasure.
Those were good. They were entertaining.
No, they were. The first one was great.
First one was awesome.
Yeah, and I can't complain about looking at Diane Kruger. She's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen.
All right.
So which movie are you talking about?
National Treasure.
National Treasure.
Cage and John Voight and Diane Kruger. It's about they stole the Declaration of Independence, and it was a really good movie actually. One or two more, Russ.
All right, last one.
Okay.
Jason once says, Russ, in regards to Ottawa and the pick, was it maybe foolish that they didn't move Carlson at the draft and try to get maybe a 2020 first rounder? I thought, I'm not going to say it was foolish, but I thought that that's what they were going to do. I would have done that. But it's easier said than done.
Ottawa is going to get a first rounder. If in one of these trades, in a deal for Dzingel,
I believe that too. Yes.
Yeah, they will get. It's just going to be in the 20s. Now, just last question.
All right, BK has it.
Okay.
Any forwards the Leafs would target, in Mike's opinion? So none of our other opinions matter. Only Mike's matters.
Well, that is true. I don't think they're going to go after anybody really impact. I think they'll go after a fourth line veteran. I wouldn't be surprised if they go after a guy like Riley Sheehan because
Sheehan would be good for them.
He played for Babcock. He'd be cheap. They'd probably get him for a 4th or 5th round pick. They throw a contract back to Florida to take a little bit of the cap hit off of it. I think that would make a lot of sense.
You know what? It makes a ton of sense because if look, guys like Babcock, same with Maurice, they have these trust things. And if there's a guy out there they trust that he can roll out in a situation that he wants, it's going to make him more comfortable in other areas. So it's a totally logical move. What
does Cody Ceci get in terms of a trade for Ottawa in the sense that Ceci's an RFA at the end of the year and a team is going to, if they trade for him, they're going to have to probably pay him in the $4 to $4.5 million range on a multi-year deal. What do they get?
An A prospect and some sort of draft pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe a second round pick and a good prospect.
Yeah. I still think if you ask me, for $2 million, I think the Leafs should still go in on Luke Glendening, to be honest.
Yeah, but that seems to be a bone of contention between Dubas and the league. Or, well, at least it was last year because Babcock made it clear that he wanted a guy like Luke Glendening as a 4th line guy. But he had 3 years.
That was last year. This is different now,
Yeah, maybe.
He would be a good fit. I mean, he really would.
At that salary, 1.8 for 2 more years. Yeah, I mean, it depends on whether Detroit. Remember what Kevin said.
And then they'll give Detroit a second for it, and you'll lose your mind again. But that's what they'll do.
Well, at least that would be a long-term addressing of the 4th line situation, not a rental. Like I'm all for them trading for Brian Boyle, but not giving up a second round pick for a guy who's gonna walk and go someplace else next year. It's just stupid. Yeah. It's bad asset management.
Yeah.
And then
I know BK didn't ask for it, but that was my opinion.
Okay. All right. Great show, guys. We'll be back on Monday. Maybe there'll be some more trades. We'll have Act back next week for most of the shows. He's been taking care of his son and his situation right now. We wish them all the best.
Chris says, would you deal Gudas to Toronto? Philly's not doing that.
No, I don't think Philadelphia's trading Gudas.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Unless they get a first-round pick, and I can't see anybody offering that. So,
yeah.
For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.